Chapter 7 A Royal Mess. It was a beautiful spring day outside, absolutely perfect for the picnic. The sun was shining, the birds were singing, and the flowers were blooming. Yes, nothing could ruin this day for us. Not even the small flicker that caused the scene to fluctuate around us would prevent us from having a good time. It was Fluttershy, Lyra, Pinkie Pie, Twilight, and I, just sitting on a white and red plaid blanket enjoying the beautiful sunrise. Or was it a sunset? It didn't matter as long as we were happy. Every now and then someone would tell a joke, and we would all laugh. I couldn't even remember what the joke was, just that it was funny and I would laugh with everyone else. We were casually chewing on sandwiches from a bottomless picnic basket. Everything was perfect. The scene flickered again. The one-screen terrain of the grassy field was replaced by a black and white static, like what would happen on the television if one were to lose a channel signal. We didn't mind, though. We were used to it by now. The scene would turn to static for a short period of time, usually 1 or 2 seconds before reverting back to the lax field. Something was wrong this time, however. This time, the static lasted for about 10 seconds, give or take. And when it morphed back, the grassy field was gone, replaced by strange gray and brown terrain. Some of the trees in the distance were ablaze. The scenery wasn't the only thing to change. My companions were different, too. Fluttershy was broken and bloody. Her body was perverted in ways that were so unnatural it made me sick to look at. Pinkie Pie had a smile frozen on her face, but her eyes were in despair. She was lying down on the tattered cloth of what was left of our picnic blanket. Her eyes were locked onto me. I was perfectly fine at first glance. She was still laughing and eating a sandwich, but as I looked closer, I could see signs of decay all around her body. She was slowly dissolving in front of me, and paid no mind to it. Twilight? Twilight was just gone. I didn't see her anywhere. The scene flickered back to the previous, more relaxing image. The ponies were back to normal. Nothing was wrong with them. I frowned. That post-apocalyptic nightmare had only lasted for a few seconds, but I could still remember what it was like. My friends didn't seem to remember what had just transpired. "Is something wrong, Hunter?" Twilight asked in a happy tone, as if she hadn't witnessed the horrid scene. No. I waved my hand dismissively. I was just seeing things is all. With a shrug, Twilight continued chewing on her sandwich. Something felt off. I started asking myself questions that I hadn't thought of before. Why were we here having a picnic? More importantly, why was Twilight here? I felt as if I should be avoiding her for some reason. An irritating sensation made me want to scratch the back of my head. Static covered everything before we were fading back to the green field. Why was it doing that? It didn't seem very logical for it to do that. And that wasteland, what was that about? My headache returned. Everything was static. I couldn't tell the difference between 1 foot from me and 10 feet from me. The environment started fluctuating rapidly. Static, wasteland. Static, grassy field. Static, wasteland. Static, static, static. You really shouldn't be thinking about this so hard. I rolled around to see a brown hooded figure approaching. It would be best to go with the flow on this ride to insanity, he continued. Who are you? I asked. Oh, no need to worry about that, the figure waved. Let's just say I'm here to help. He stood next to me and viewed the chaotic jumble of black and white pixels. It's beautiful, really, he commented. The human mind, so much potential, so much power, and yet so much of it is wasted. I caught a glimpse of one of his eyes. It was a brilliant shade of yellow, seeming to glow in the dark. A small crimson pupil lay in the center. Seriously, though, who are you? I asked again. The stranger sighed and shook his head. Oh, Hunter, so inquisitive. You'll never rest until you figure out the puzzle, will you? I gave him an odd look. Look, I normally wouldn't play this card, but now seems like a good time. Dreams are, from what I've gathered, basically the gateway to the human subconscious. And this, my friend, is a dream. Throughout the static, a loud rumble shook the air. The black and white pixels were moving faster than ever, turning everything nearly gray. A dream? But Wow. This couldn't be a dream, could it? Everything made perfect sense until I balanced my pounding head in my hand as the environment shook harder. This was a dream? No, this was reality. Nothing existed out of this. Nothing else was conceivable. Perhaps I played the card too early, the hooded figure mused. Oh well, the deed is done. Do you mind if I accompany you? The nerve of this guy! Who is he to come up to me from nowhere and shake my very perception of reality? And he wanted to hang out with me? I didn't even know his name! Still, other than the picnic, which seemed to be long gone by now, I wasn't doing anything. Sure. Why not? I reluctantly said. We sat down, somehow. My mind was still boggled that this could be a dream. The scene flickered and changed back to the field. The ponies were back, lounging around and chatting again. The hooded figure looked uncomfortable around you. Hey, Hunter, who's your new friend? Lyra, the conception of Lyra? Casually asked. I'm a friend of his, the figure answered for me. I shot him a glance. He grabbed a sandwich and downed it in one bite. Delicious. You, sir, can imagine some great sandwiches. He reached into the basket and withdrew a couple more. Thanks, I guess, I replied. Another flicker, and we were back to the wasteland, back to the dead field and burning trees. My companions were back in their mutilated state. The hooded figure looked at his empty hand with disappointment. Oh, still eating that, he grumbled.
Hey, what's the big deal? Was I not invited?
A voice asked from behind us. That voice, it couldn't be, but the small laugh at the end confirmed my fears. A character with a dark blue hoodie plopped down between me and the mutilated Fluttershy.
Oh, so cute.
He cooed as he scratched the perverted Pegasus's chin. He looked like an exact copy of me. My word, the brown figure asked. How unsanitary.
Thanks.
My doppelganger chuckled. I felt lightheaded. The world turned back to static. I fell back and looked up into the monochromatic fuzzy sky. Oh dear. I do think we've broken him.
Undoubtedly.
Well, I guess he'll be waking up pretty soon. It was certainly a pleasure to meet you, sir. I hope we meet again.
The feeling is mutual, Discord.
My mind had reached its limit. Everything went to black. Alright, bow test number 21, I announced as I readied myself to fire my makeshift bow. I felt proud. I had managed to gather a few branches and vines and manipulate them into a lethal weapon, sort of. So far all of my attempts have been horrible fails, but I had a pretty good feeling about this time. I placed the twig that was supposed to represent an arrow against the vine and aimed at the target, my water bucket. I pulled back, and the branch bent as the tension built on the vine. It was going to work. Snap! The bow split into two complete halves. The upper one flew back and slapped me in the face. In shock, I dropped what was left of my bow's remains. I stumbled back and massaged my injured countenance. That's it. No more bows.
Oh, but you were doing so well.
The voice smirked.
Perhaps if you tried again.
Forget it, I grumbled. You said that 15 tries ago. I rested on a nearby rock surrounded by all of my other failed attempts at making weapons. Shattered bows, broken slingshots, clubs that snapped off at the grips when I swung them, hatchets with blades either too dull or too loose to be of any use. I fell under another coughing spell. My sickness had become remarkably worse since yesterday, so much so that my mood was being affected too. This is ridiculous, I shouted. Making tools is practically the one thing that separated human from animals, and I can't do it.
What about intelligent thought?
Yeah, that's beside the point, I dismissed. I need to find a way to defend myself out here, and I can't even build a simple weapon. I kicked a nearby broken branch to punctuate my outrage. And, even worse, those blasted ponies are going to be flooding the forest after what happened yesterday. If I don't find a way to defend myself or at least look intimidating, then I'm as good as dead. I stood up and started pacing. There had to be something I could use as an advantage, but what? I couldn't create any projectile weapons. There was too much math, physics, or whatever involved in that field. Doing so would take time and patience, neither of which I had at the moment. Explosive weapons? No, I still couldn't figure out how to make a simple fire. I knew that I had no way of making anything sharp with my limited resources.
You're really putting a lot of thought into this.
Really? What gave you the idea? I snapped. Seriously, why is this so hard? It would be so much easier if some amazing doohickey just fell from the sky. I lifted my head, almost expectantly, to the dense canopy. Nothing but vines and branches. Of course not, I grumbled. That would just be easy. I couldn't stand the sight of all my failures anymore. With great frustration and a nasty cough, I deviated from my linear pacing and went for a walk through the trees. It was odd, really. The trees, I mean. They weren't like any evergreen trees that I knew of, but they still managed to keep their green colors despite all of the other trees changing with the season.
Are you seriously pondering over something so trivial?
Hey, my mind wanders sometimes, I protested. You, of all things, should know that. Besides, what else is there to do? Yeah, 'cause we all know how well that turned out.
It was merely a suggestion. We just do not think that it is a good idea to be wandering around the forest unprotected.
Thanks for voicing your concern, but I think I can handle myself.
Really?
The voice asked in a tone that was borderline mocking.
Might we remind you that you were brought down to your knees by 2 ponies? Or how about how Twilight seems to have the peculiar ability to put you in intense pain with her strange powers? Lyra even managed to tackle you into that pit.
Okay, I get it, I griped. Still, I've wasted too much time on those pieces of scrap. I need to put my mind on something else. I continued walking in silence. The wind slowly rustled the leaves. I paused and took in a deep, refreshing breath. The cool air filled my lungs, rejuvenating my system. Bliss. There was no better word to describe how I felt. For a moment, all of my fears, my troubles, just seemed to melt away at the sheer beauty of the scene. There wasn't virtually anything that could ruin my walk, not even the frequent coughs and the pains that came with them. A chill coursed through me as a frigid breeze swept by. I fumbled with my jacket zipper with cold, numb fingers until I had completely sealed off my shirt from the wind. The breeze took me out of my peaceful trance and into a newer, more solemn one. Winter would be coming in a couple of months at most. Each night was getting colder and colder. I woke up one morning and could see the foggy condensation of my breath dissipate into the air every time I exhaled. With winter approaching, my days of stealing from the farm would become limited. I needed to find another food source if I wanted to survive the winter wonderland. Oh my gosh, can you believe what Lara said the other day? I snapped out of my hypnosis and hid in the nearby bushes. I know. The poor unicorn must have lost it, a second voice sympathized. 3 brightly colored ponies emerged from some of the foliage. Can you believe that she was actually standing up for that monster? A cream-colored mare with a mane and 3 shades of red said. She was practically putting herself up for that kind of response. Her 2 companions nodded in agreement. A pink pony with Lily in her golden mane groaned. Ugh, did Twilight have to send us on patrol now? We're going to miss the running of the leaves. I know! Ugh, stupid monster making us miss an important event like that. This monster patrol thing is cutting into my schedule. The bright pink pony with a bouncy lime green mane let out an annoyed grunt. This is the worst day of my life by far. It's okay, Daisy. I feel exactly the same way, the cream-colored pony said. You know what? How's about when all the silly monster hunting is over, we go to the spa? My treat. Just then, I accidentally stepped on a twig while readjusting myself. The whole thing snap might as well have been a gunshot or a flare. The 3 ponies stopped dead in their tracks and turned to the bush that was hiding me. They must have seen something, considering the look on their faces. That sounds like a good idea, Rose, the bright pink one said. Daisy, if I interpreted their names correctly, agreed. In fact, let's cut this patrol short and head over there now. Sounds good to me. Lily, what about you? Rose asked. Lily chuckled a bit nervously. But of course, after you. With that, the trio dashed back the way they came. When their hoofsteps faded away, I rose from the bushes, suddenly cursing that twig. I probably could have learned some valuable information. Well, at least I have an idea of how Lyra's doing on her side, I said.
Yes, and she doesn't seem to be doing well, does she?
The voice remarked. Cut her some slack. It's practically one versus an entire town.
Which makes the effort futile.
You and your cynicism, I sighed. I marched off in some random direction. Lyra was trying her best to tell the citizens of Ponyville that I wasn't a bad guy. I could only imagine how stupid she probably looked standing up for me. I wondered if, well, hoped is a better term, she managed to catch a few ponies that would actually listen to her. It would certainly make things easier on my front. I chuckled at how I had so eagerly placed my life in the hands of a pony I met just yesterday. In retrospect, it probably would have been a good idea to go with her and Zakora into Ponyville. Seeing me casually walking with her friends could have elevated some of the ponies' fears.
Yes, and then we could have merrily skipped to the end of the rainbow, where the leprechaun is ready to whisk you away to the magical land of sunshine and happiness.
The voice scoffed.
It is high time you faced the facts, Hunter. You are not now, nor were you, nor will you ever be allowed in that town. The ponies will never accept you. You are too alien to them. Imagine what it would be like if some outlandish creature stumbled across your hometown.
As much as I hated to admit it, the voice was right. Things never turned out that easy. And if they did, then something was wrong. That's the outlandish creature scenario. My friends and I would have probably reacted similarly to the way Twilight and her friends did the way I showed up. I sighed in defeat. Even with Lyra and Zakora trying to convince the town, there was no way I would ever be accepted. My troubling thoughts brought me to a foreign area of the forest. The green leaves were long gone, as it seemed, and were replaced by vibrant shades of gold, crimson, and orange. I had a thought to go back to more familiar waters, but my curiosity got the better of me. I stumbled upon a dirt trail and mindlessly followed it. I took as much of the scene as I could in. The vibrant leaves barely dangling from the trees, the cool aroma of the fall air, the rustling in the bushes deep ahead, and the birds chirping. Wait. Now! 3 colorful blurs of motion leapt from the rustling bush. I felt some pressure form around my head as the metal loop fell down around my waistline. When everything slowed back down, I noticed that I was halfway inside a large metallic butterfly net. On the other end of the silver rod, protruding from the ring, was the 3 fillies that had a knack for getting me in trouble. They're absolutely joyous at their feet. "Yeah, I knew we could do it!" Scootaloo shouted. The 3 fillies jumped up and shouted,
Union Crusader Creature Catchers! Yay!
and gave each other the pony version of a high five. They were utterly clueless as to how their plan had only partially worked. I took the net off of me and leaned against a nearby tree. Their rejoicing ponies slowly ceased their prancing and looked at me with eyes glowing with confusion and caution. Sweetie Belle leaned into her friends.
I told you we needed a bigger net, she hissed. It was the biggest one I could find.
Apple Bloom replied. The 3 slowly started backing away with fake smiles.
Well, this has all been very fun, but we really gotta get going.
Said a very nervous Scootaloo.
Yeah,
Sweetie Belle added.
Besides, we wouldn't want you to eat us. We're too chewy, see?
She tried to prove her point by poking Apple Bloom on the side with her blunt horn.
Don't say that,
the pink-bowed pony hissed.
What if it likes chewy food?
The 3 looked at each other, then back to me.
Hey, what's that over there?
One of them shouted. The trio didn't even wait for me to turn around before running in the opposite direction. I massaged my temples to help cope with what had just transpired. Those 3... There was something about those 3. I had yet to figure out if it was good or bad, but there was definitely something about them. In their haste, they left the large metallic butterfly net behind. A thought surfaced in my mind. I couldn't be serious, could I? I would look absolutely ridiculous. But still, I grabbed the net and examined it. It was fairly long. The top of the loop that held the net was eye level when I stood it straight up. The diameter of the loop must have been large if it could fit around my shoulders with ease. It was lightweight, as if hollow, but a bit offset on the side with the actual net. I gave it a twirl to see how I could maneuver it. It was a bit rough, but I could see improvement in the future. I abruptly slammed my open palm into my face. I cannot be serious about this, can I? I laughed.
We think you are,
The voice said.
and might we say, you should go with it for the time being. Who knows? Perhaps you can manage to still strike some fear into the hearts of your foes.
Yes, I said, Fly. Every pony in Ponyville will fear the mighty hunter and his butterfly net of doom.
Well, when you put it that way...
Against my better judgment, I took the net with me. The voice could have been right. Using this would make up for the lack of defense for the moment. I could probably tinker around with it when I got back to the castle anyway. Back to the castle. I realized just how long it had been since I started my walk. My legs weren't happy about it either. I turned around and retraced my steps. After a few minutes of walking, I realized I was lost. Horribly lost. I was beginning to regret going further into this part of the forest instead of going back to the more familiar Everfree. I sat down against a tree and tried to map out as much of the forest as I could in my head. A faint rumbling in the distance caused me to lose my train of thought. I could easily decipher it as the sound of hooves pounding on dirt. I had too much experience associated with that sound to think otherwise. But why would the ponies be here of all places? Perhaps Rose, Lily, and Daisy had informed Twilight of my presence? Had the fillies managed to run back to the town and start a full-scale riot? No, it couldn't be the latter. Applebloom, Sweetabelle, and Scootwood ran off in the other direction. If that was where Ponyville was, then that would imply that these ponies were already here. But that still didn't explain their presence. The sound was getting louder. I discarded my tent and my net and climbed a tree. My clothes' darker colors were sharply contrasting with the reds and yellows of the leaves, and I couldn't position myself any deeper in the tree. I just have to pray that the ponies wouldn't look up. Dozens of multicolored ponies galloped by. As they passed, the leaves in the trees started shaking and falling off. The only thought in my head was why? Why did the leaves have to fall off now of all times? I was now completely exposed to the ponies below. However, despite my sudden lack of cover, none of the ponies seemed to notice me. They were all looking forward, and as I observed the passer-by, I noticed that they all had papers with numbers on their flanks. It seems as if they were running a marathon. A large shadow passed over me. I shielded my eyes as I looked out to better see the pink hot air balloon gently floating in the same direction the runners were heading. Inside the basket were Pinkie Pie and that young dragon, Spike, if memory serves me correct. They seemed to be giving comical commentaries over the race through a rather loud megaphone. When the last of the ponies ran by, I jumped off my perch and retrieved the net. I started off in the direction the ponies ran, transfixed by some conflicting thoughts. The marathoners could very well be running away from Ponyville as much as they could be running towards it. Nevertheless, they would have to return to the town eventually. I bet that if I followed them, they would lead me back to the town and ergo lead me to the more familiar part of the forest. The walk was uneventful. The only peculiar thing that popped out was that all of the leaves had fallen out of the trees. Not even an hour ago, they were all still attached to the now barren trees. I deviated from the trail and into the trees as a mass of ponies came into view. They were all chatting amongst themselves, some cheering, some patting each other on the back. The sight made me jealous. I longed to be a part of that crowd, even though I would surely just shrink into the background the moment I found an interesting conversation. One pony stood out from all the others. It wasn't simply because she was the tallest or that her pure white coat seemed to reflect the sun. It wasn't the fact that she possessed both a horn and a pair of wings either. Not even the air of power that accompanied her, that made all of the smaller ponies bow down when she passed by, would have made her stand out to me. No, it was the fact that her one deep purple eye that wasn't covered by her long, majestic, four-colored mane that billowed in waves like a flag was staring directly at me. I froze. The large pony leaned her head down, never taking her eyes off me, and it sensed something in Twilight's ear, who just happened to be next to the regal pony. Twilight glanced in my direction, and her eyes instantly widened as she quickly nodded. The large pony then turned her head to two other white ponies who each bore a pair of wings and golden armor. A silent message was relayed, and the two armored ponies took flight and darted in my direction.
Now would be a very good time to leave,
the voice suggested. I didn't have to hear it twice. I bolted away from the Pegasi, waving through the trees while hugging the cold metallic net. One of them slammed into the earth before me and snarled menacingly. Before I could turn tail and run in the opposite direction, my other pursuer appeared, obstructing my escape. "Give it up, monster," one of them growled. "You can't outrun us, and you're outnumbered." I took a few steps to the side so they could both be in my line of sight and pointed my net at them in defense. My opponent smirked and then bursted out into laughter. "You you honestly think you can beat us with a butterfly net?" one of them laughed. His companion was on his back trying to catch his breath to continue laughing. I scowled at the guffawing ponies. "You are about to get quite the surprise," I growled. My body went into autopilot as I tightened my grip on the net and swung it like a baseball bat at the closest Pegasus. A loud ring echoed throughout the forest as the loop of the net connected to the side of his helmet. He fell over, dazed. Before his friend had the chance to get back up, I arced the net down and captured him within the webbed patterns of the ropes. His eyes widened with shock. I swiftly yanked the handle, which promptly sent him flying towards my newly raised foot. An audible thump could be heard as his face kissed the bottom of my shoe. The first armored Pegasus came back to his senses and tackled me. I lost hold of my weapon as we tumbled across the ground. Hooves pounded on chests and heads as hands constricted throats and grabbed at faces. "Enough!" A golden aura encased me and my opponent and separated us. My body temperature skyrocketed as I was sluggishly draped across the ground. My body contorted itself in as many ways possible to channel the pain out of my system. When the aura faded, I collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. I glanced up and could see the fuzzy image of that large white pony. She was much more opposing up close. The two Pegasus scrambled up between me and the tall one. "Stay back, princess. This one's dangerous." The pony who barked out the warning froze and sheepishly turned around. With all due respect, that is." Then, as fate would have it, I sneezed in their direction. The two guards instantly snapped into action and pinned me to a tree. "You dare attempt to taint our beloved princess's health with your foul disease!" one of them screamed. "You shall pay for your treachery!" But before he could punish me, the princess spoke up. "Guards, stand down." The two froze and whirled around. "But, your highness—" "No buts. I assure you, I will be fine," the princess replied in a kind but firm voice. "I have a few plans for the beast, and it requires that I am alone." "Yes, ma'am, at once." The two guards bowed and reluctantly retreated. The pony princess lowered her head and narrowed her eyes once we were alone. I gulped and tried to make myself as small as I could against the tree. Her long, sharp horns started to glow a light golden color. I braced myself for whatever horrid torture I was about to endure. "Are they gone?" I cracked open an eye. The princess no longer had her lethal horn pointed at me, but instead was staring down upon me with curiosity from a casual stance. "Are they gone?" she asked again. I stuttered. The princess smirked. "You know, you're not doing a good job representing your species." I stared at the towering pony in shock. "Here, allow me to start. My name is Princess Celestia. I live in a castle back at Canterlot, and I am one of the co-rulers of Equestria. Who are you?" I was still speechless. Twilight and Lyra both said you could talk. Maybe I found the wrong creature?" "Hunter!" I blurted. The princess stared at me in confusion. "I mean, my name is Hunter. Hunter Gray. I'm sorry about the inconvenience. It's just that I—" "Shh," Celestia whispered with a smile. "I figured I had the right. Oh, what was the word Lyra said? Humid?" "Human," I corrected. Celestia nodded. "Right. Well, human, Twilight has been sending me quite a few letters about you." I gulped. This wasn't going to end well. "When I came here to watch the running of the leaves, I had full intentions of capturing you. However, when I came to town, one of my subjects, Lyra, tried to convince me that there was good in you, so I am conflicted about what to do with you. I could have you arrested for your crimes, or I could give you a chance to prove your character. Which would you rather have? The second choice would be nice, I mumbled, still shaking at her presence. I figured. Allow me to fill you in on a secret. Celestia leaned in close. Miss Cheryl will be hosting a field trip in the Everfree Forest to teach her a class about biology in exactly 1 week. I would like for you, she pointed a hoof at me, to offer some protection. Does that sound reasonable? I nodded my head as fast as my neck would allow. Very good. I hope to hear many good things about the field trip. So long, Hunter the Human. With that, the Pony Princess turned to leave. Something was still troubling me. Wait, I cried out. Celestia halted and tilted her head towards me in curiosity. I stood up and dusted myself off. Why again are you giving me this chance? Celestia turned again to face me. I noted how we were at eye level with each other. Like I said before, Lyra seems very adamant that you are not a monster. Normally, I would have put full faith in my faithful student Twilight, but Lyra begged for me to give you a chance. A smile found its way on my face. Lyra was actually making a difference! I felt foolish for doubting her in the first place. However, you did not prove her point well in that little skirmish with my guards. I suppose we could say it was self-defense, though. I'm in giving you this chance to see just how much good is in you, and if you can keep a promise. She smiled and walked off again. Wait, I called again. She paused and glanced back at me with a smile. I nervously chuckled. Sorry, how exactly am I supposed to protect the kids? Citrus Horn glowed and my butterfly net hovered into my hands. The foals? I think you will find a way. I heard you can be very resourceful at times. She gave me a wink, extended her wings, and flew off to where the other ponies were probably waiting for her. I stared blankly at where she once stood. Thousands upon thousands of thoughts crashed through my mind. Slowly, ever so slowly, they accumulated into a glorious idea. A devilish grin split my face.
What are you thinking, Hunter?
Many things, my friend. Many things.